Hey there, gang. All right, I discovered something. Okay. I discovered something, and I got to share it with you. I've been messing around with acoustic pedals and trying to get my sound because I'm going out on the road. As soon as I get to Europe, I'm going to be jumping around and playing again. But you all know, right? Like anybody who's watching this who's played acoustic direct, it's a nightmare. Like, there's different types of pickups. Even when you've got blender systems, there's issues, and you want to run it through pedals and do cool things, or at least you want it to sound good. Just please, God, let my acoustic sound good plugged in, right? Right. Okay. So that's why I've been messing around with it so much. But I discovered something, and it was an accident. I actually bought this pedal by accident. And you know I'm the one who's like, don't spend money, use what you've got, maximize the tools you already have. I'm usually not one to tell you to buy the latest and hottest thing. And this is neither latest or hottest, but I bought it by accident, and it's super fantastic, and it made like a huge difference. So I'm gonna show this to you, and I'm gonna play through it, and it's eventually gonna, well, anyway, let me show it to you first. All right, so I just was messing around, and I put together this little mini pedal board because, like I said, I bought a second one of these because I think the Sonic Cake thing is really good. It's also really useful because, like, we almost always need EQ, right? But what if we had an EQ pedal up front? There it is, up front. It's hard to do when you're like looking at yourself. But you have an EQ pedal just to give like little fine changes. And also, just for the record, I want to recommend not to go crazy with EQ on any instrument because you'll get phase issues and you'll probably overcompensate. And then, of course, you got the damn sound guy who's going to be doing stuff, and some stuff is out of your hand, and every PA system sounds different. So that's why this is really useful, because you've got EQ, you've got reverb, you got the preamp sound, and it definitely does have a sound. And so I put together this little mini board. Now, yes, the TC Electronic mini flashback, it's not the Meris LVX that I'm using on my main board. But like I said in my last video, the Meris, I have 4 or 6 different presets for, you know, some of them are tame and some of them are wild, and they're used texturally during the show. But this, I've got this really cool, I think it's like a deluxe Memory Man, but lo-fi thing that I found on the Tone Print app. But let's say you could load it with something really crazy, because of course on the Tone Print app you can change things, right? And make something really crazy that you just throw in, you know, every once in a while during the show. Or just use it as a dirty lo-fi Memory Man thing that I've got loaded in there. Yes, it doesn't have multiple presets, so you're stuck with that one thing. But for a mini board, it's very useful. I was using this Sonic Cake Modulation Mini as my chorus. It sounds great because it has mix, blend, it's fantastic. And then you've got the little EQ, and I only use that for little touch-ups. Or what if you used an EQ pedal for a boost if you're playing in a band with acoustic, right? Right. And then I've got the mini sustainer because I had the big one. Now, the advantage of the big one is that you have 3 different presets that you can save, 3 different tone prints, and I've got them very careful. Like, one's got a flanger and one's got a chorus and one has a vibrato, and I use those on 3 different songs. And the basic chorus one I can use up to 4 to 6 songs if I want to. But this is really cool with the basic preset. And then I bought this on purpose, the JHS Tighty Whitey, because it's a FET compressor. So for finger picking, the FET's faster attack, faster release. It just gives you a little more snap when you're finger picking. And when you're finger picking, it tends to be not as loud as when you're strumming, so you can make it louder with a little extra volume. That's really helpful. But this pedal, this little thing here, which is the Copper Sound Iris, this thing is a revelation. And let me tell you quickly why. So what it is, I was looking at it and somehow I bought it and I was like, okay, I accidentally bought it. I must have hit Google Pay or something. And what it is an optical mini pedal. It doesn't have blend. It's got 3 different settings for how aggressive the compression is. In the middle, it's very tame and soft and gentle. And then it's like medium if it's down and then more aggressive when it's up. I tried all 3. In the middle sounds amazing for acoustic. But more importantly, my acoustic sounded better. It like EQ'd itself, you know, because you can technically sort of EQ your guitar with careful use of dynamics. For instance, so this doesn't have a blend, but okay, it sounds amazing. So you can turn this off, and when you're finger picking, turn this one on, the FET, with a little blend, so you can get even a little bit more aggressive and also have a little boost in your sound. But together, they have a whole nother thing going, especially if you use the blend on the second compressor, and it's EQing my guitar before I even get to the EQ pedal. It's taming certain frequencies. It's doing what a compressor does. It's tamping things down. But the real revelation for me was when I took this. And I was like, because like I said in my last video, right, I'm using the Meris, the compressor in the Meris LVX as my compressor instead of a compressor to save board space. But here's where it got wild. Just on a whim, I said, well, let me take the Iris, right? Let me take the Copper Sound Iris, because, you know, a lot of people will say that an optical compressor is the best for acoustic guitar, or one of the best. However, I've tried a lot of different optical compressors, like dozens really, to be honest. They're all different. Some are more aggressive than others, and not all of them sounded great on my acoustic. But this one would, however they have it set, because like it's a set it and forget it thing, it's just got volume. Whatever they did sounds incredible on my acoustic. So, all right, so I throw it on that board just as an experiment. I said, all right, well, let me just, you know, fire it up and see what happens. All of a sudden, I was like, wait a second, this sounds fantastic. So then I turned off the Copper Sound Iris, and I was like, okay, turn it back on. And yes, it sounded better. So I'm like, all right, now I don't want to have too much compression, and I could feel that like where I had the compressor set on the LVX, even though it's got blend, was a little bit much. So I went into the LVX, I adjusted the mix, and I adjusted a few other parameters. The most important being, I think I had fast release set on the Meris, but I had a medium attack or maybe even a slow attack. Anyway, I played around with it a little bit, and what I ended up with, fast attack, fast release. So maybe it's programmed to behave like a FET compressor, because you only get really one choice when you go to compressor on the LVX, it's compressor. You have swell and other choices in the dynamics area, but that's it. So I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So anyway, long story short, I start tweaking some of the parameters, the threshold. Oh, something just fell in my closet. Never mind. The threshold, you know, mix. So anyway, I got to the mix about like 34 to 37%. The threshold I brought up so it's not hitting very hard, et cetera, et cetera. I still kept it at 3-to-1 because oddly I was like, okay, well, I have another compressor in front of it. Maybe I should go down to 2-to-1 or even 1-to-1 or maybe, no, 3-to-1 with 37%, 34 to 37% blend with this pedal on in front of it. And guess what? It sounded better than running through this, although we'll get back to this board in a second. And I was like, wow, this sounds really good. This sounds like almost perfect. And then that's where the sonic cake comes in, where you start tweaking. But then I realized that my Source Audio EQ2, my programmable, amazing Source Audio EQ2, was off. Yes, the amazing sound I was hearing was with the EQ that I spent so long tweaking off. So that made me go, wait a second. All right, I got to find a way to put this Copper Sound Iris Mini Optical on that board. And then maybe put, because it was the EQ was unnecessary. But I want to have an EQ because, again, it could be good for tweaking. Every PA is different. Every club is different. Every sound guy is different. It's just good to have an option to have the EQ on there. Plus, like I said, you can use it for boost. So I'm going to put a mini EQ on there and this, which fits in the slot that the EQ2 was in. And then I get this on that board and I'll have the EQ if I need it. So it was quite the revelation, and I'm going to play through that for you, hopefully after I show you this. And the key thing about this is, so the mini pedals were a lot better than I thought. A lot better than I thought they were going to be. And, you know, there's probably an option to, you know, swap out some other things. But then I said to myself, wow, so this is like a mini version of what I've been using. I'm going to play through this so you can hear it. So let me demonstrate this for you. We'll check it out together. And then hopefully, if we have enough time and it doesn't become too cumbersome, I'll play through the Meris board with the B-Tronic, CB, and all that stuff that I showed you the other day. I'll play through that really briefly with this on, with the Iris on in front of that, because that's where that's going to live too, and you'll hear the difference. And understand, like, with the data compression and whatever else goes on with YouTube, it's not going to sound. I mean, I'm going direct. You're not getting any post-production, but stuff doesn't always sound like I'm hearing it when I'm doing the, you know, bouncing down the audio. But just go with me on this because it makes a huge difference and I think you'll appreciate it. All right, let's go. Night has fallen and we're ready to rock. Again, I'm just going from my guitar to this pedal board straight into my interface, into Pro Tools. So there's nothing else in the way. So Larrivee L-03 Rosewood. It's got the Anthem dual source, almost 50-50, a little, maybe 55 piezo to 45 mic. And this is what it sounds like just with the Sonicake factory, acoustic factory on. And the settings are treble at noon, mid at like 1 o'clock, bass at 2 o'clock, reverb, and the mix on the reverb. The reverb's almost noon, but the mix is like 10 o'clock. And the notch is at 3 o'clock with the cut at 10 o'clock. So, and that sounds like this. Not bad, right? So no other pedals on but the factory. Okay, now we're going to click on that Copper Sound Iris optical mini pedal. Pretty good. Again, off. Iris on. Certainly cutting the highs a little bit, but it's also conditioning the rest of the tone. Really, really good. Now I'm gonna put the EQ on. And the EQ this is a cheap Moen. It's kind of like a Moore, but a Moore ripoff, if that's possible. And I got the bass boosted, the 630 hertz boosted, and the highs, like 1.2 cut a little and 4K cut a lot. And that sounds like this. I think that pedal adds a little high frequency crap, so that's why I cut it. But it could be useful for certain things. Again, this is with the EQ off. EQ on. Arguable whether that's better or not, but it's nice to have that option. So it's a nice little pedal board. So now I'm going to turn the iris off. So yeah, now we'll turn on that JHS Mini FET compressor. Turn the iris off. This is without any compression or EQ. Now the JHS. And we'll do a little finger style with that one. So you definitely get a little bit more of the attack and a little bit more punch with that one. Now let's try them with them both on. Both off. On. Let's try to get the volume matched a little bit. Off. Off. On. So again, yeah, the highs are being clamped down, but it's an interesting sound. And since the compressor in my Meris LVX is obviously being very complementary to the optical and the iris, let's mess around with this JHS Mini FET and see if we can maybe pull the compression down a little bit and the blend down a little bit. All right, let's see how this sounds. This is without. This is with. Definitely compressing because there's two compressors on, but if you set them just right, they complement each other. And now let me put the EQ on. Yeah, it's very interesting having that EQ after the compressors. They clamp down a lot, and then you add some nice little flavor after that. It's pretty cool. So let's just go with the iris again. the mini JHS FET. Definitely punchier with more highs, and then both compressors and the EQ on. Definitely more compression than I'd ever want to use. But again, that was the weird thing about having it in conjunction with the compressor on my Meris LVS, maybe because it's a digital emulation compressor, maybe because of the way, you know, the different parameters were set up, because there were a lot more parameters. There was threshold, and you could precisely get the attack and release and how much gain you bring back in. I think a lot more of it has to do with the fact that it's a digital compressor versus an analog, and they just complement each other well. But I'm turning off the JHS, so now it's just the Iris. So here's the Iris by itself. And now adding in a little of the EQ. I would probably work on the EQ a little bit more. And then again, you have EQ that you can adjust on the Sonic Cake Factory. So pretty cool, but the real hero to me, I'm just blown away by this Iris. So here's without any compression. And now here's the Iris by itself. I mean, it's a compressor and it's clamping down a little bit, but that's pretty damn organic, especially for a mini pedal. So I'm really impressed. Let me try to show you real quick what it sounds like, the Iris, with my Meris LVX on the other board. Hold on. So this is the other pedal board, again with the other Sonic Cake, same pedal, different EQ settings, because one of the points I was trying to make in one of the other videos is as soon as you start running through different pedals, things sound differently, and not just because of buffers and other things. The circuitry from pedal to pedal and how they complement each other, they change. So whatever. This is the board as it is right now with just the Meris and the Sonic Cake A Factory and the Source Audio Zio adding a little preamp flavor. That's what this sounds like. And that's no EQ, that's with the Source Audio EQ off. So that's just the compression in the Meris, some delay in the Meris, the Zio preamp by Source Audio, and the Sonic Cake Factory. But as I mentioned before, I've turned the mix and adjusted other parameters down in the Meris to complement the Copper Sound Iris, which I'm now going to turn on. So this is without it, with it. So this is without the Iris. And this is with it. Without it, with it. Now that's the softest setting for the iris, the middle setting. And you could say, oh, well, it's clamping down a little bit and it's cutting some highs. Yeah, but now I have room to use the iris and another little mini EQ in the spot taken up by the Source Audio EQ2. So if I need to bring in a little more highs, or a touch of mids in a certain position, or maybe I want to boost the bass at a specific frequency, I'll have the option to add another compressor with the iris and an EQ. Or turning the iris off. This sounds pretty damn good now with the compressor turned down to 37% mix and adjusting the parameters a little bit from my last video. This sounds pretty good by itself. So anyway, that's my little find of the week, is that little Copper Sound optical compressor. I didn't know anybody made an optical compressor in a Mini. I mean, there were some a couple of years ago. I think Menatone made one possibly, and maybe somebody else, but this one's terrific. So if you're looking for an optical for acoustic guitar, check that out. And I'm definitely gonna put them on either of these boards. As you heard, this can sound pretty dang good on its own, utilizing this and some mini pedals. And if you don't like compression, you don't have to use it either. I find for acoustic guitar, you need something on there just to control it, because the peaks of acoustic guitar are much more than electric, and the parameters necessary for compression are different. So anyway, just something to think about. Thanks for watching. Take care.